take a look at this. So you see how this mirror is recessed here?
Oh yeah.
You see how I can put my finger on the top edge of this door? This is the angle you want to look at when you look for dings, because they would show up as a wave or an impact. This is what we call the fender finger, where the finger meets the bumper. Okay. This is just a little rotary haze. There was probably something on the paint and they just hit it real quick. Every single one of these power trunks has this issue.
Right.
And sometimes you'll look at the trunk and it'll look like it's twisted. Yeah. A massive scratch right here.
Oh yeah.
These headlights, they're known for being put in loosely and they'll rock in the socket. These look pretty solid. We'll come down and we'll check this fog light. I've had fog lights where I've pressed them and they cave in to the entire bumper.
In this episode of Tesla Series, a car body and paint expert will tell us everything we need to know about Tesla delivery inspection so you can do a thorough walkthrough and report any imperfection to Tesla or reject your delivery altogether. This covers a Tesla Model Y, but the checklist is applicable for all Teslas and even all cars in general. We already own a 2018 Tesla Model 3 where we have shown our viewers hundreds of Tesla accessories, and this brand new 2023 Model Y 7-seater is our second Tesla. We took a delivery of this car from Tesla's Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania service center and drove straight to a Ceramic Pro elite dealer to get it inspected. If you find this video helpful and would like to see more Tesla contents like this in the future, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We are here with an expert. His name is Gabe Fletcher. He is going to help us go through the delivery inspection, go through all the panel gaps and everything to make sure we are getting the right product and it's not a lemon. That will also help you decide when you are watching this video on what to look out for when you go out for delivery, because you might not have an expert like him on your team. So we are going to go ahead and show you a walk around the car, and Gabe is gonna tell us what to look for, panel gaps, scratches, swirl mark, things like that, so that maybe you can pick up on some of those for yourself. With that, Gabe, do you wanna introduce yourself?
My name's Gabe Fletcher. I am the owner-operator of Ceramic Pro Pottstown here in Pennsylvania. We are a Ceramic Pro elite dealer. We install Ceramic Pro ceramic coatings, window tint, and paint protection film. We're probably one of the area's biggest Tesla supportive shops. We support all kinds of different EVs. We do Lucid, Rivian, Polestar, and every other EV under the sun. I'd say about at any given time, we're usually working on anywhere between 3 and 5 Teslas in here. So we do a lot.
I see one right there.
Yes, we'll take a look at that, and
yep.
I'll show you around that here a little later.
Sounds good.
Today, we're gonna go through what we call our delivery day inspection. So we're gonna go around the car, we're gonna look for various things that may be a problem. The goal here is, number one, to calm the Tesla purchase anxiety.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have it because of the quality control, right? So the goal is to help people to understand what's acceptable, what isn't, and what needs to be addressed. Because if you take delivery of a car and it needs to be painted, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of purchasing a new car.
I agree.
Right? And then things don't match.
Right.
Documented paintwork on your VIN for Carfax, it doesn't hold up over time.
No.
So the goal today is to just kind of give everyone a basic understanding and help them to bring the threshold down of wanting perfection out of a $50,000 to $60,000 car.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's all these are.
Yeah.
That's what they're priced at now.
Yep.
They're no longer $80,000, $90,000 for the Model Y.
True.
This is going to be the everyday commuter car, probably the most popular and most sold car of 2023. Especially now dropping below 50 grand.
Yep.
So, where did you pick this up?
At Mechanicsburg.
Okay. How was your experience at the dealership?
It was really good. They had a little name tag on the front, and I just gave them my check, and they took my license. Then I was outside. They told me to walk around the car, and when I was ready to hit the agreement, I just hit that, and then the car, I had access to the car in my app. Then I opened it. I could kind of do the inside look and everything, and they did tell me if I find anything major on the car to let them know so that they can address it. So that's another reason I'm here. So you can tell me if there's anything wrong. But I mean, I'm not an expert. That's why I trust you, your judgment here today.
Understood. So, have you purchased a car that hasn't been a Tesla before?
Yeah.
How was your experience at the Tesla dealership versus other car dealerships? What was the biggest thing that you noticed?
I think that touchless system, there was no haggling, there is no dealer telling me like, oh, you can get a better deal with this package or whatnot. Everything was done online, right? Like app did everything. You could do this literally from your bed. It doesn't matter. You show up, and then it was all touchless. My name was on the car, where it's like, this is your car. Go use your app, and then go take a look. Everything was inside. I mean, I already have a Tesla, so I know how Teslas work. But if I didn't, they had notes everywhere that said, this is how you open it, this is what you do. They were like, if you have any questions, if you need any help. So amazing experience. And that's the same experience I had 4 years ago. So when I picked up my Model 3 4 years ago, it was literally the same experience. Yeah, a little bit more, you know, on the side that it felt like a traditional dealer, but today it felt like a mobile dealer, right? Like you just walked in, everything was good, and they had a video on the screen that, you know, showed how to use your Tesla, which, you know, of course I already knew, but that's good for a new owner. So I really liked it. I do not like haggling with dealers in the dealerships, and this was just a great experience.
The biggest thing for me that I notice is that anytime you want to go to a dealer and purchase a car, it's a minimum of 2 hours that you're being there. Even if you've ordered the car, you're still looking at like an hour and a half to 2 hours worth of paperwork and waiting for the like the PDI guys to get done. So that's the biggest thing that I noticed with Tesla.
It was 5 minutes today.
That's
literally
awesome.
5 minutes, right? Like not even exaggerating. It was just, I was there, 5 minutes later I was out, so.
That's great.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna get started on the inspection, and we're gonna start at the front. We're gonna go around the car, and we're gonna go over what we found. All right, so let's take a look at the front, and we're gonna kind of go through some of the things you've seen us do on YouTube on your car, right? So the first thing we do when we stand here, so we look at the gap around the hood to make sure that there's nothing egregious, like you can't fit anything here and the gap is as big as your thumb over here. This looks relatively uniform. Everything looks uniform all the way around. What I do is I follow the gap from one side to the other. I can see that the gap here is slightly larger than it is on the passenger side, but again, this is not something to rake the dealer over the coals for. This looks okay. The next thing that I jump to is headlight fitment.
Okay.
These headlights, they're known for being put in loosely and they'll rock in the socket. These look pretty solid. We'll come down and we'll check this fog light. I've had fog lights where I've pressed them and they cave in to the entire bumper. So, you know, again, it all depends on who puts it together.
Yep.
So.
And those are held down by plastic pins. I have removed those and replaced them in the past. So.
Exactly, and they break very easily.
Yep.
So we check this one. This one looks good. Fog light here looks good. You've got some bug splatter from driving over here.
Yep.
I start looking around the lights, looking at the different, the various gaps. This looks, the fender and the bumper looks okay. This right here is a great alignment point to look at. This is what we call the fender finger, where the finger meets the bumper.
Okay.
And this is nice and tight. There's no gaps. Everything looks uniform. I come over here. I see the same thing. This is nice and tight. This is what we want as a shop, because this gives us a little bit of room to hide that edge without having to jam it in there with a tool when we put film on the car.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm looking around, I'm looking at the reflection of the light in the hood. I'm looking for scratches. I see haziness from like a rotary buffer. Let me see if I can find it to point it out to you. Here's some right here. See, I don't know if you can see it or not.
No.
It's hard to see if you look at it from this angle over here.
Okay.
Just look right through here.
Oh yeah. Yep, you can see a
So
little bit of.
come up, then tilt. There it is. You see it?
Yep.
So this is just a little rotary haze. There was probably something on the paint and they just hit it real quick.
Okay.
I don't see any chips.
Okay.
Everything is looking good here. So now we work our way around the car.
Okay.
Once we get to the fender, we're gonna crouch down. and we're gonna give our trim a tug. So usually we'll find there's a clip missing in here, and when we pull this, it comes all the way away from the car. This one, however, is where it's supposed to be. We tug all the way around. This looks good. I push on this bottom portion of the fender liner. It doesn't give. That means that it's clipped where it's supposed to. It does on both sides. So that's good. We come up here, we look at the camera. We see here the camera's nice and tight. It's not jiggling in the socket. Now, this is always something to look at. It's always the passenger door and the passenger fender. This gap here is always wide. And if you look this way down the car, look this way. So come all the way over here. So you'll see that the door sticks out further than the fender. That is within spec.
Okay.
It's on every single Tesla like that. It's not perfect. I've seen better, but again, this is not something that you need to reject the car for.
Okay. And when you are measuring that gap, like, is there a good rule of thumb? Like, how does the average person know that?
The goal is that you look down and that it looks uniform from top to bottom, and that you shouldn't be able to stick your finger in it.
Okay.
Right? This is just, that's hard to describe.
Right.
Less than the width of a pencil. It's typically a great way to go. Pencils, even that, it's really wide.
Okay.
I wish I could think of an inanimate object to tell you to bring with you to, you know what, that's my $1 million idea.
Okay.
So,
make a Tesla fitting.
Exactly. So we come here and we look at where the A-pillar runs up against the fender. And this looks pretty good.
Okay.
If anything, maybe the fender needs to be rotated forward.
Okay.
And that's indicative of the gap being larger here than it is up here. I don't think that you need to loosen this fender to make this perfect.
Okay. All right.
So we continue on down the car here. We look along the A-pillar for dings. I can see that there are some nice towel swipe marks in here from where the dealer got their hands on it. That's okay. Small swipes and things like that. Towel marks, not a reason to reject your car.
Okay.
So let's take a look at this. Look at this. This may be just not closed all the way. So the passenger door sticks out a little more at the top here. Again, this is me noticing everything OCD, right?
Right.
The gap is uniform.
Okay.
Maybe slightly larger down the bottom, but in general, it looks like everything seals. And if you don't hear any wind when you're driving, that's usually a pretty good sign.
Okay. And again, you said you shouldn't be able to put your finger through it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Right, so we get down to the bottom and we just kind of look down the rocker panel just to make sure that the doors haven't been slammed and they're not wavy.
Okay.
Everything looks really good here, nice and straight. This looks good, so let's come back here. So this is a little larger than I'd like.
Yeah.
I've seen where this gap here is tighter.
Okay.
Let's see what happens when we give it a nice little. This might be worth saying something to Tesla about. Whether or not you get Tesla to give you what you're asking for has yet to, that'll differ depending on who answers your ticket.
Okay.
This is something I might say something about, like, hey, my passenger rear door isn't flush up against the trim. I'm worried about dirt getting in there. You use these kinds of verbiage, what you're worried about with the car, and not just that you're.
It's a cosmetic defect.
Right, no, it just you want to state your worry for the particular issue, and not just you want to make yourself out to not be nuts in the ticket, because that's what Tesla people are used to. Right? That's what Tesla's used to, is just telling people no all the time. The goal is to let you use the verbiage so that they're more willing.
Sounds good.
So we check all of our trim through here. Everything is nice and tight.
Is there anything on the wheel that we have to check? Just the hub.
I would always look around the very edge for curb rash.
Curb rashes, yeah.
And I don't see any.
Okay.
And if you want to look behind this, just give it a yank.
Okay.
Everything looks good. It's nice and dirty from your ride over here.
Yeah.
We're going to leave this guy off right here.
Okay.
So let's keep working our way around.
Okay.
Trim here around the door looks okay. This looks okay. As we get to the other side, like you pointed out to me when we got here, this quarter window trim sometimes doesn't sit perfectly flush. There's double-sided body foam on the other side of here. This side looks a little better than the other. And you'll see the difference when we move over there.
What about this gap? I know this is a trunk gap, right? Like again,
Yep.
same deal. I mean, I can't put my finger here.
No, yeah, I mean, every single one of these power trunks
Okay.
has this issue.
Right.
And sometimes you'll look at the trunk and it'll look like it's twisted one way versus the other.
That's funny.
This has a lot to do with how the body is put together. And when the trunk is put on, it's put on under tension. The body can flex, especially after you connect the lift shafts here for the power feature.
Okay.
After you connect that and you connect it to the rest of the body, you get flex in the trunk panel. That's why it appears to be crooked like that. That's just Tesla design issues. So you could harass Tesla about it. Mm-hmm. The truth is, you also have to think long term about how much you want somebody taking apart your car.
Right.
Right? So that's something to think about. Now, we come around over here and we start looking at our gaps around the lights. This gap is a little larger than I'd like it to be. This one right here.
Okay.
Let's open this up. Can we adjust this? So there are stoppers here that are adjustable, and you can move them and twist them to adjust how and where the trunk sits. So this one's out pretty far. And it looks like that's all we're gonna get.
Okay.
So we keep looking, making sure everything is where we want it to be. We made a couple of twists here. Let's see if anything changes. Nice soft close. So
Like that.
it really didn't get any better. So let's come over here and you can see the big difference.
Okay.
Look at how much closer this is.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. That's
So this is something you bring up to Tesla. You say, hey, I'm concerned that my trunk doesn't fit correctly, or something along the lines of my tail light might need adjustment. So let's go back over to the passenger side here. So let's try and wiggle this a bit and see what moves where it's not supposed to. This is nice and secure. What happens if we move this? Flex this? Nope. So this is likely related to the trunk sitting too low or not being straight.
okay.
And so it looks like the trunk needs to just scoot to the right some. And that's also indicative here. Come stand over my shoulder. So look here where the trunk and the A-pillar meet. You'll see that the trunk is shifted to the left. You see how that inner edge doesn't line up?
Yep.
This one right here?
Yep.
Right?
Oh yeah.
So now what I just said, where it needs to shift to the right, that makes a lot of sense, right? So this side's definitely better. Ultimately, they need to move it. So what Tesla might do here is they will loosen the hinges and they'll pull on the trunk lid to try and scoot it, and then run the bolts back in to try and lock it back down. Or they will remove the trunk, pull on the body to make it line up better, or they'll insert shims into the mounting points of the trunk lid to try and make it fit better. It's just kind of dependent upon which Tesla division you get and what they do. This, I think, maybe you mentioned in a support ticket.
Yeah.
Not a reason to reject the car.
Okay.
Because again, it's a $50,000 car, right? And we also have to be realistic with our expectations. And that's the biggest thing with this.
Are this getting better over time that you have seen? No?
I've gotten sequential VIN numbers.
Oh.
So I've been to the dealership where there are sequential VIN numbers where I'm looking at both cars. One car will be like somebody put it together blind, and the other one, somebody put it together under a microscope. Identical VIN numbers, sequential VINs, and then it'll look like that. It's
Same factory, everything?
out of
right?
Fremont.
Wow.
It doesn't matter. So that's, listen, Tesla's made a lot of technological advances, right? They've invested a lot in the tech and the infrastructure. There's only so much time in the day, and there's only so much you can put into tooling before you start having to rework things from the ground up. I don't necessarily know that a trunk panel being out of alignment this way indicates that Tesla's a bad auto manufacturer. I think that it indicates that Tesla's only been at it for a decade, and everyone else has had a chance to do it for 6. Two totally different levels of input. It doesn't matter who Elon hires.
Yeah.
Those are 2 different levels of knowing what you're doing, right? So let's, we'll come back and we'll stop playing politics.
Okay.
We'll keep looking at the car here. So I also like to open the trunk lid, and I like to look through here to make sure that there aren't any popped clips. This always flexes here, and this feels normal. There's nothing underneath that's loose.
Okay.
I always look at this inner edge to make sure that it's relatively straight, and it is on both sides.
Okay.
So let's take a look here. This is also indicative that it may end up being that the light needs to be loosened and scooted. So let's take a close look here. So take notice of how big this is,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then come over here and look at this. There's almost no lip here.
Up here, yep.
So again,
It's probably the light.
it may end up being the light is just needs to be repositioned in the socket.
Yeah.
You don't know until it gets taken apart.
Okay.
So we come around the bottom, we tug on this, kind of give it a push. We found where these clips that hold it to the actual bumper here will not be secure. So this is nice and secure. Marker light's where it's supposed to be. This doesn't move. We use this opportunity to look at this trim in here.
Okay.
I don't see anything scratched or nothing broken. So when I look in here, this is me going the extra mile right here.
Right.
So come stand over my shoulder, and you can see body welds, right? So I'm looking and I'm making sure the welds are complete and they're not broken.
Okay.
That's also happened before, where things like this have just been wide open and cracked, right? Yours look fine.
Okay.
And that's usually in states where it's crazy, crazy cold.
Okay.
So we're gonna come around to the driver's side, check our trim. Everything feels good here. We look at this gap through here. It's uniform, right? So this is also an area of contention.
Okay.
Meaning for those who are getting paint protection film, right? Because you want paint protection film and you want to hide every edge, right? And people will say, oh, well, I can still see gloss, or if they're getting a color change, I can still see the edge here. You're right, because there's nowhere to stick the film here. You can't put it anywhere without pulling this apart and loosening it.
Makes sense.
So that's just a sidebar, something to notice. Now, you, as soon as you came in, pointed this out to me, where you were worried about this being out of spec. When we compare it to the other side, this is definitely a little further out. So, there's typically body foam in here. And that's how this is held on.
Yeah.
And it looks like this needs a piece to hold it further in.
Yeah.
So you can do that yourself, or you can harass Tesla for it. And I think Tesla already told you that it was within spec,
Yeah.
and I think that that's what they're going to tell you again.
That's fine. I can put that.
So we look at our gap at the door. Now, let's look at this because there's a big difference between this door and the other side.
Okay.
So come on over here. You'll see that the door sits inside of the trim,
Oh, yeah.
right? So I can actually stop my finger.
I look at from this side and I become more.
Right.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is how it's supposed to look, right?
Okay.
It's nice and solid at the bottom, right? This is how it should be.
Okay.
Now let's go back to the other side. Now look at it from over here.
Oh, yeah.
Look at how big this is.
Yeah.
To a point where my finger comes off as I run it down the panel.
You can't even do that, yeah. And there's no edge from this side.
Right? So this
Yep.
needs to be further in.
Okay.
So maybe open a ticket and say, hey, my passenger rear door needs to be adjusted.
Okay.
Again, panel gap issues like that, not a reason to reject the car.
Okay.
Something to bring up to them later, not a reason to reject the car.
Okay. What would be? I guess big.
So if I looked at that
Uh-huh.
and it was completely where like I could fit my hand in from the bottom, or I found the door at the bottom looked like it opened into something,
Okay.
right, and it was bent underneath. If I found deep scratches, things that I know aren't going to polish out, so if it's white and my finger gets caught in it, that's a pretty deep scratch, and that's only going to get fixed with paint. Now, like, let's take, for example, let's say the scratch is like here.
Right.
Are you going to see that unless you're looking up from above? Is that a reason for you to reject the car? If you think your OCD is that bad, reject the car. If not, maybe you live with it because you're probably waiting another 4 to 6 weeks for another one.
Right.
So, we'll open this. So we look down the edge of the door to make sure that it's not wavy and it hasn't been slammed against anything. I look in the door frame, the jamb, and make sure there's no nicks or scratches. Because the detail guys will get in at the dealership, and they'll be carrying a bottle, or they'll have their cell phone on their hip, and they'll go like this, and scratch up against the door jamb.
Okay.
Right? I don't see anything. Everything looks good. We come to the front door. This gap looks okay. It's about where I would want it to be. We just keep looking over door edges. We look into the jamb. I don't see any chips. I don't see any feet marks on the door.
Yeah.
Because sometimes what guys will do is they'll get in and they'll reach across,
And
and then the foot comes up against up here. That's usually, if you see things like that, that's usually a pretty good indication that the dealership doesn't have great staff. Nothing you can really do about it
Right.
as a consumer.
Right.
So everything looks. So I'm seeing on the exterior here. I don't see anything that is a major
Okay.
problem.
Okay.
But I do see this. So let's come up here where the door meets the fender.
Okay.
Take a look at this. So you see how this mirror is recessed here?
Oh, yeah.
You see how I can put my finger on the top edge of this door? Come around to the other side. Look at this.
Oh, yeah. That's flushed.
This is correct.
Yes.
The other side is not.
Okay. So we'll make
So what we do when we pull these, when we do full body, we pop these mirrors off.
Oh, okay.
So in your case, we're probably going to be able to handle this for you. If for whatever reason we put it back together and it still looks like this,
Yes.
open a ticket.
Okay.
Maybe open a ticket beforehand.
Okay.
Right? This is usually just a matter of tweaking
Okay.
the mirror and then, you know, re-securing it.
Okay.
But you can see here, this is a problem. Why this is a problem is because when we put film here, and if the tension isn't even on the top of this, what'll happen is you'll get uneven seam wear, and then one edge will start to roll back versus another part of the top, right? So that could potentially be an issue later down the line.
Okay.
So we keep coming forward. We test our driver's side camera. Come down and we tug on this. Everything where it should be. I look down the car and everything looks straight.
Okay.
I'm looking for dings in the door.
Nothing.
So come down and look over my shoulder here. So this is the angle you want to look at when you look for dings, because they would show up as a wave or an impact. Everything looks where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
So this kind of completes the exterior.
Okay.
So let's go over what we found. We found the driver's side mirror probably needs adjustment. We found that the passenger rear door likely needs adjustment. We found that it's either the trunk or the passenger side taillight needs adjustment. We haven't found any dings. We haven't found any scratches. We haven't found any indication of foul play. Everything looks pretty standard here. So we're gonna start checking out the interior. The first thing I like to do is function check all the switches. Everything rolls smooth. We go back up. Everything looks good. We come in here and we start tugging on trim. We push on things.
Nice.
So you have a massive scratch right here.
Oh yeah.
So, ticket for Tesla for this.
Okay.
They will just replace this entire piece of trim. I like to look at the seat. We look for pop stitches. It's hard to see because there's not perfect lighting out here. But I'm looking all up and down the seat. I'm looking for stitches that are popped out and broken. I don't see any. We tug on this. This is nice and tight. There's not a ton of play. We grab the whole console. We give it a nice tug. There's no noises. Now from here, we tug on the screen a bit. We look at the screen for dead pixels. Everything looks smooth when I move it. Nice refresh rate going on, right? We check functions.
The front popped. and
Yep.
then the
We
trunk
close
came
the
out.
trunk.
Close the trunk. Yep. Trunk closed.
So we
Front
check.
can't close yet. I'm gonna
No.
install that soon.
So we come in here and we check the center console. We check the soft close. Make sure it's not hitchy. It locks. This is my favorite feature. I feel my OCD. Oh yes, perfect. So we check and make sure that this doesn't hitch. Sometimes you'll go to pull it down and then it'll get caught and then it'll fling forward. You pull these down. You see here, you got film here. I'm taking the liberty. So now what I do is I look up at the glass. So when the car comes in, there is protective plastic all over this interior. And you've seen me in other videos where I've pointed out little bits of plastic that are left behind. This looks like they got all of it, which is great.
Awesome.
There's no fraying here. This feels like a different material. So this is definitely a different material in this. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
is usually a greasy
rubber.
kind of rubber. It's definitely a rubber, but it's got some kind of a coating on it.
Yeah, true, true. I have taken this apart many times. When
Yeah,
I'm
that's
walking.
the first thing I did when I touched this. I noticed that. So, again, the goal here is to just, we're scanning.
Yeah.
And we're looking for things that jump out at us. No weird steering wheel issues.
Looking at the seat stitching, you said, right?
Yep,
Like
looking at the seat stitching. Sorry if I go quiet. I'm just, you know, you gotta look and kind of scan and go over everything. And I don't see anything else that jumps out at me here. So we're gonna move to the back seat. Check the carpet. We keep looking for stitches. This is odd. This looks like an adhesive stain. This should come off. So, why don't you come close here? I don't know if you can see this. It looks like little dots everywhere.
Yeah.
This is overspray of some sort from kind of probably the silicone dressing. This should lift off when we scrub it. So we're gonna check the latch again. I'm gonna open the back here. Everything locks the way we want it. We're gonna check the release of the third row here.
That's good.
No weird noises, that's good. You got your front plate. You got your charger adapter.
The second row, right?
That's so violent how that releases.
No.
All right.
And the trunk well here. Good.
Going around the whole car, I don't see any major issues here.
Okay. So we're keeping it.
I'd say you need to keep it.
Okay.
And just outside of the minor things like that scratch on the front trim on the dash and the exterior issues we found, I think you're good to go to keep this.
Okay. All right, so we just did a complete walkthrough with Gabe here, and he pointed out everything you need to look out for when you are doing the delivery for a Tesla, but also be realistic. That's the moral of this story here, is it is a $50,000 car, or in a Model 3, it's probably under $40,000 car, and just be realistic about what to expect. There are certain things that Tesla might fix, certain things Tesla might not fix. It is always worth to ask, right? It doesn't hurt to ask. Tesla might just say, nope, that is within spec. This is something that we can fix. So it's always worth to ask, but also be realistic. That's what we're hearing today, right?
Yep. Realistic is always the best case scenario because, as we all know, you order a car and then all you do is devour content about your car until Tesla shows up with it, right? So you are infected by all of the people that are upset and who have unrealistic expectations for a vehicle manufacturer that's only been doing it for a decade, comparing that to vehicle manufacturers who've been doing it for 6 decades, right? So that's a very large gap. So take and just approach it from, is this going to bother me every day? is, am I going to see this every time I get in the car? And can I see it from 10 feet?
Right.
If you can say no to majority of those things, probably not worth you breaking a sweat over. But it never hurts to ask, right? And I do this for people all the time. I'll get messages and emails from people from all over the country say, hey, I just picked up my Tesla. This is what I found. Should I pursue this, or what am I looking at? And I give people a realistic answer all the time, because at the end of the day, I know what Tesla is probably going to harass or going to take, and what they're going to say, no, sorry, we can't help you with that.
Makes sense.
And I think, again, approaching it from a realistic standpoint is ultimately going to be the best thing for you, because then you don't have to sweat over every single detail.
Yeah, and also some minor imperfections, as you said, even on the panel gaps. You point that out, and even if Tesla says they will fix it, that means they're taking apart your car unnecessarily, right? Like, so that's the big point too.
Weigh the risks in that. If there's somebody taking apart the car, risks for damage increase, right? And ultimately, whatever issue you're dealing with on the car, as long as it doesn't need to be painted, you're probably doing okay.
Yeah.
Because if you can live with it and the color's original and it doesn't change because it's been color matched and painted after the fact, that's the best case scenario.
Thank you for that. And we will do a follow-up video with Gabe here talking about the different protection packages. What is ceramic coating? What is paint protection film? What is a vinyl wrap? So there's a lot of these products that are coming in. So we are going to sit down with Gabe in a future video and talk about all of those. Maybe do some demo of, PPF protecting the car versus.
We'll take some rocks and just jam it across the side.
Not in my car, but maybe on a table. But we'll try some of that and then see how well the PPF handles. So a lot of those videos are coming. So if you are interested in any of this product, please stay tuned for all of those videos in the near future. Thank you again, Gabe, for today. We really appreciate it. I'm sure the viewers who are watching this video who will have that Tesla delivery anxiety, hopefully you're feeling a little better about this.
Yes.
So we appreciate you sticking around for this video. Thank you very much for watching. And as I said, stay tuned for all of this. We're going to get PPF for this car, and we're going to be back within the next 2 weeks or so, showing you the results and what we found, and then have another discussion with Gabe here. Thank you, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so that you don't miss videos like this in the future. We appreciate your support.
Bye.